Claris Talk AI.
I'm Chris Ippolite,
I am Matt Navarre.
and we have a really special guest, Louis de la Parra. How you doing, buddy? Louis from
Hi, Chris. Hi, Matt.
Claris, as
Hey.
everybody knows him so well. Good buddy of mine. I'm super excited to be nerding out here with Louis here today on a topic that I think is really important. This is a brand new feature that just got kicked off from FileMaker, from the folks at Claris. I'm really excited about it, Matt. I know you're really excited about it. There's a lot of really good energy here. And Louis, you are the man. You are the guy behind the man behind the curtain, so to speak, on MCP over at Claris.
MCP, I thought we were talking about custom functions. Oh, wait, that was like FileMaker 7 or something.
Well, so well, first of all, congratulations shipping. Dude, it's not easy to ship, and you know I know anytime something ships out the door at Claris, it's particularly a big deal. Congratulations to you and your team on that one. Really well done. How long have you guys been working on MCP?
Awesome. We've been working on it for quite a bit. I think around the time of Engage is when we really started getting together between product and engineering and talking about what it might look like. And I appreciate the kind words, but I will call out that it's very much a team effort. The product and engineering teams coming together to build something like this. It's a great feat, and I want to recognize what they've done as well. I just happen to be the one that gets to talk to you all about it.
Let's take a couple steps back and kind of define it a little bit. And then you've got a bunch of demos to show you.
Oh
Yeah,
by the way, and if you're listening in your ears, listen along, but you definitely want to go check this one out on YouTube. Louis got some really cool stuff to share with us. And
I'll try to describe screens.
We'll do our best as well. One thing you just mentioned, which I think will help zoom out a little bit, is you mentioned the time frame. So around Engage, so it was about March. I'm guessing that this has to do with the fact that, like, literally when we were all at Engage, an announcement came down from OpenAI, actually, not even Anthropic, that said, hey, this model context protocol that Anthropic released, which was about a year ago, is what, November 2024. We're not going to be pursuing our own. This is OpenAI talking. We're not going to pursue our own. So instead, we're going to defer to the model context protocol that Anthropic released. And that just, like, everybody put their tools down and just went crazy. That's the same time Claire started thinking about this.
Yeah, that's accurate. We looked at it from a protocol perspective and ability to reach many clients and customers. And as you say, once MCP became really more ubiquitous within the client agent LLM space, it seemed like that's the good way to go. It also works really well for FileMaker strengths, right? It essentially acts as what I like to call a translator between what an LLM or an LLM client can talk about and what FileMaker can talk about and understand. In this case, from MCP to the data API, or more importantly, the OData API that FileMaker has.
Yeah, actually, great. So can you tell us how important maybe the unique timing of OData and the stuff that you guys were working on right around that same time, and how that may have facilitated the release of MCP for FileMaker?
Sure. Yeah, we started working on some OData improvements actually for quite a bit, mainly around being able to connect to things like Claris Studio well and enhance some of the capabilities of OData itself. So some of the new functionality that you'll see in OData serves not only the MCP portions that we're going to talk about today, but also some things on Studio. The OData API is, as we see it, much more scalable than the data API has been previously. It also provides some additional functionality that's kind of critical in this space. When we get into talking about dealing with large amounts of data and being able to aggregate the data, FileMaker is kind of uniquely positioned to allow some, what I'll say, like offsite aggregation via MCP tool calls. So OData and the apply and the aggregate query parameters that we have actually work really well here.
What do you have for demos? Are you going to start with Hello World?
I was going to start with something a little more.
That?
Yeah, well, we could definitely do. We'll definitely do a Hello World as maybe the second demo, so everyone sees how it's built.
And then,
you show kind of the cool stuff. Yeah.
And some quick definitions before we get started. We want to assume that folks that are tuning in are doing so because they're curious about what this is and maybe they don't have any background on it. A couple quick vocabulary items. MCP client versus, well, first of all, M stands for model, C stands for context, P stands for protocol. Louis, is this the context that we're all familiar with, that we all had to relearn in FileMaker 7, that is really is so critical and probably the source of all bugs related to any FileMaker development? That's the same context you're talking about, right?
This is my job to be the straight man.
Hello.
I would say it's similar, but it's important to note that this context is for the model itself. In much the way that you try to learn about context inside of FileMaker, as like having layout context and having a found set that you can use as context in scripts. It's similar in that way, but it's really a combination of all the pieces that the client or the LLM have at their disposal, whether it be actions that they can take from things like tools, or whether it be resources they could pull, or prompts that they can pull to learn more about what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, so really it's a huge superset. Yeah, I'm kind of guessing that Cris was going for something. Yeah, no, it's not that at all. But I think it's actually a huge superset of context, right? It is, I don't know if it's layout based, we'll get into that. And that's kind of what context is in regular FileMaker, is what layout based is, and what table occurrences, what relationships you can see from the layout that you're currently on, because that, like Cris says, breaks a lot of things. And yeah, while that is important here, I think it's also the greater AI context that Cris and I have talked about a lot.
Yeah, that I think is the important thing, is to just wipe your mind clean when you hear context in this context, because we're actually talking about being able to provide information. When we use the term context, to be able to provide this to an LLM within a call to an LLM. That's specifically what we're talking about here. And the whole reason for the Model Context Protocol was to unify the ability to create this standard in this protocol for all applications to be able to connect in the same fashion, to kind of help snowball the industry and the development. Right. Two terms also, MCP client and MCP server. Louis, do you want to take a stab at those before you jump into your demos?
Before Cris corrects you.
Oh, sure. The MCP client, as I know it, is the thing that is going to use the MCP tools and connect them to the LLM that you're using. So in this case, I got one.
Just kidding.
In this case, we're going to see two specifically. I'm going to show Claude as kind of a generic one that works really well. You can have it on your desktop. And then I'll also show Fast Agent, which is more of a development tool, a little bit lower level, but allow us to get into some of the instructions and prompting that we might want to see. So yeah,
Claris is not providing the client. They're providing the server, and to be able to host these things at the same time, right? And then the ability to configure, not the client, though. Is that
correct?
Fair to characterize?
Correct, yeah. Okay. You would bring your own client, so to speak, whichever client you think works best, whatever model also you think would work best. That's I think an important part here.
Yeah.
We provide the servers, and it's important that we talk about that. They're multiple, because when we get into creating many of these, it's important to know what the distinctions are. So Claris provides the MCP servers that your MCP client would connect to in order to take an action, right? Answer a question.
Now,
one big thing I'm going to be getting into is like, how can FileMaker Pro be the MCP client to connect to a bunch of other? You can use Claude Desktop, yes, but what can you do from FileMaker? Because it seems like you could actually use this to connect to like a different protocol to connect to other FileMaker database servers, like in different parts of the world, with very, very different capabilities. Anyway, continue.
I love that. And one more little boring thing for those that are super excited and they want to jump into this. You must have a Claris ID and team management. Is that correct? That's my understanding. And then
yes.
Data API must be enabled, and you must have what version of FileMaker server minimum so that you can leverage OData?
It is 2202 and above. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, if I can share my screen just to
let's do it
a bit.
Yes, please.
Oh, actually, I might have to come back. I didn't check that beforehand.
Yeah, that. On the Mac where you have to authenticate yourself.
I'll be back.
No
sorry.
problem at all. Yeah, so Claris ID, because this is actually how you authenticate. FileMaker server version 22.02 not only has the OData capabilities that are required, but also the ability to actually go in and see. You'll see an AI services tab. If you guys see an AI services tab in your FileMaker admin console, then I believe you're good to go. And then after that, you can do all the cool stuff that Louis is going to show us here in just a moment.
Yep.
And I like where your head's at, Matt, on can can we look at this from the other direction as well too? Because FileMaker is by far not the only thing that can actually act as MCP server, for example.
Right,
So,
right.
oh yeah, we see it, Louis. This is great. And again, anybody not watching on YouTube, feel free to pause, and then when you're done walking your dog, you can come back and watch the YouTube. Good stuff. Take it away, Louis.
So real quick, thank you for the summary on the getting started requirements. I just want to recap them so people have them fairly clearly. FileMaker Server 2202 and above is required to make the connection. You need OData and the data API enabled on your FileMaker server. We're going to use both those technologies to create and then execute the MCP tools. And then your account within the database must have FMREST and FMOData extended privilege sets. Last but not least, as Cris alluded to, you need to have a studio manager role in Claris Studio. So essentially be able to create, update, delete tables inside of Claris Studio.
So you're saying to be able to configure the MCP server, not the end users don't necessarily need to be a manager, or do they?
They do not. Yeah, the end users actually don't necessarily need a Claris Studio account. When you create these connections, you're going to get what we call a context token, and you're going to use that context token to secure just that connection. So you don't actually need an account in Claris Studio to consume the MCP tools.
And I'm going to tee you up on this next slide for those that are listening. So Louis, obviously, when you connect AI to your FileMaker database, you're exposing everything. It's full YOLO, go nuts. Like anybody can get access to anything when you connect it to AI. I hear people say this all the time, so that has to be true, correct?
That one is not true. We're using the same security paradigm that FileMaker has, which will be both extended privilege sets and then also the database design access.
So it's
the same. Yep, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I'm just keeping score. It's Louis 3, Cris 0. Yeah.
Well, we had a differing opinion on the context. I like to describe it in a way that FileMaker folks can understand, but absolutely, it's a different concept. Yeah. Switching back to security, just so that we're clear on it, the FMREST, the extended privilege sets required to access via the data API, that's mainly used for scripts and to retrieve container URLs in a way that you can distribute on the web. When we talk about OData enhancements, that's also one of the things that we're looking to shift into OData. So FMREST is required for now, but expect as we enhance the system, we'll be able to remove that piece. The other and most important connection is the FMOData. That is the extended privilege set that allows you to use OData, which is going to drive the majority of the tools. So those two are important. From a design access, getting down into like the nitty gritty to prevent users from having access to anything or a client from having access to anything, the design access that you have in FileMaker Security, and we could walk through this, is what allows you to control the granularity. So if you have particular records that you want to make available, you can do that via calculations, as we've seen. Specific tables, specific layouts, value lists, and scripts. Within FileMaker, using the same paradigm we've used for years, that's how you set up your security here.
Yeah, and it connects to FileMaker with a regular old FileMaker account, right? So that it gets all of its security through that, and which makes it easy to control.
And
the way we are used to
create an account specific for.
Well, definitely a best practice.
Yeah. What about a privilege set? Does that make sense to create a privilege set for MCP?
I'd say yeah.
I generally do that. Yeah, I create a privilege set for the individual types of accounts that I'll have.
Then the user needs to be a member of, their account needs to be associated with that group then to filter that access.
Yep.
Right?
Normal, whatever we're all used to. Okay, continue.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, actually, but if I'm already a user and I'm already a member of a privilege set and I want, as a user, I just want to be clear about privileges to be able to set these connections up versus an end user just experiencing a already set up MCP. You don't have to change anything with the end users. This is just for the purpose of somebody actually setting up the connection. Is that fair to say?
Correct. And actually, I think we would prefer more you to take an abstracted approach where rather than using Cris Ippolite's user specifically, you create a account that's dedicated just to this MCP connection, right? Just the things that you want that client to be able to do, not necessarily Cris Ippolite, the user.
Got it. So really the client. Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We could go into that in a little bit. Hopefully that helps set the stage on just some of the requirements. Happy to dive into a demo whenever We feel like we're ready for that.
I'm
Awesome.
ready.
Let me switch on over. Okay, so I want to start out with a use case. In this case, Rob has showed this demo before. I think it works kind of well. This is a PeakWorks database. It is a fictional construction company out in the Bay Area. They've grown quite large, and as a coordinator, I want to be able to find the jobs that are most important, highest complexity, without needing to go through the entire database. I can use Claude to do that and Claris MCP by simply asking a question. So the first question I'll ask are, what are the top priority jobs today? Right.
So
Notice
you
I
just
didn't
open up
mention the
Claude
database itself.
Desktop, like no extra special anything. You open up Claude Desktop. Actually, no, there was one special thing you had to do, which is to add an MCP server to Claude. But you're
Right.
basically interacting with FileMaker through the Claude Desktop application. Round of applause, please.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank
And
you.
do you need to implicitly invoke that server connection that you've already added to Claude,
Once
or
it's added, yeah.
Once you add it, it'll ask you the first time. We're going to see that. I intentionally set this up so it shows the allow. So in this case, based on the question, Claude decides that the best way to answer it is to use the search jobs tool, which we provided to it with the MCP. Because this is the first time that we're using this tool, Claude's going to ask you like, hey, I'm about to execute this. Do you want to just allow it this one time, or do you want to always allow? And that's really up to the end user. For the purposes of this demo, so we can pause, I have it set to allow once so we could see the payload.
but is that per session though? Like allow once is just for this particular session or conversation, or what's that restricted, or all time?
Allow once is this particular execution. So the next time it goes to execute this tool, it's
Oh,
gonna
okay.
it's gonna ask again. Always allow is per the configuration loading. So if you were to change your configuration, it'll see it as a new tool set, and I'll show you that in a little
Hmm.
bit. And then you'll have to approve it again.
Yeah. So, but you quit desktop and come back tomorrow. You don't have to. You don't have to allow it again because it's for
Right.
configuration. Okay.
As long as the configuration doesn't change,
Right.
which
Right.
we'll
Right.
see. Yeah. Awesome. So I've asked Claude the question here. It's come back deciding that it needs to use the search jobs tool with filter select order by and top, which we should all know from OData. It's going to send out that request. The MCP server that we're providing you will translate that into a data API request, which will come back with the information. And see here it says, here are your top priority unassigned jobs, the water heater installation for Kevin Hall, wiring issues, toilet repair, power outage. And in this particular case, I want to make sure that we take the jobs that are both available and are a higher priority, right? In this case, the water heater installation is leaking. He doesn't have any hot water, and we already have the new water heater on hand. And so what I'll do to make sure that Kevin is happy is I'll look for a technician that we have that has worked with him in the past, someone who has built up a relationship with that technician. So I'll ask Claude which technicians have experience with Kevin Hall. Again, it's going to identify that it needs to search our FileMaker database, the PeakWorks database, and come back with the times that a particular technician has worked with Kevin Hall. And so we'll give that a minute, and it'll come back with the job history where, well, we've had technicians that have worked with the customer.
And for those that are listening instead of watching, we're looking at Claude, and really the kind of design paradigm it follows is it shows your question, gives a response, and then says, yeah, I'm going to need to use this tool. In this case, we're looking at search jobs tool, and then below it is the text description as Louie's reading it off.
Yeah, and also this is all a standard kind of a conversation that we had that has memory. Everything you do can reference the things that have already happened. It doesn't have to requery any of that stuff.
Yeah, in this particular case, through Claude. Obviously, other clients may have different memory structures. Yeah. So in this case, I will not only want to see if Riley Garcia, who's had the most jobs, I want to see if they're actually available. And so in this case, I will go through and just search to see if they are. And so I'll ask again, simple question, is Riley available? It's going to go through, and in this time, it's going to query another database or another table, which is the search technicians table, again with OData,
So
to
this is a
find
different
out.
tool, right? So
Different tool.
it's a different tool, so to speak, than the previous one, which was search jobs. Good to start thinking about tools that way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we get to later on, when we get into context, we'll talk about minimizing tools and what definition is good to have within a tool versus other places. Yeah. So in this case, we found out that Riley Garcia is on call, and so we want to assign this job to them, right? We know that we want to try to fix this water heater as quickly as possible. Riley Garcia is available. And so what I'm going to do is assign them. And in this particular case, I'm going to do that again by just saying assign them a job and then let them know. And in this particular case, it's not going to take a table tool. It's not going to execute a tool. In this case, it's going to go deeper and execute a script, right? And so in this case, it's going to use the assign technician tool, which is actually a script in FileMaker. And when I execute that, it's going to trigger the script in FileMaker, assigning Riley, and then notifying Riley when they log into the application that they have a new higher priority job. So here you can see it's assigned the job to Riley Garcia for Kevin Hall's emergency. We've got the details. And then when Riley goes through and signs back into our FileMaker application, they're going to see it as the high priority for the day. You can see it as the emergency up near the top. And so this, I think, is a good use case.
FileMaker script is what ran that.
Yeah, exactly. Which edited data or created data in FileMaker.
And so for the first time listeners who are still wrapping their head around MCP, we talked about tools here. Now, and a couple of the tools were really CRUD operations. Is that a fair way to characterize it? And then the last one you showed was actually allowing the execution of a FileMaker script, which of course the developer has full control over. Is that a fair way to characterize tools in the FileMaker paradigm?
That's accurate. We had some CRUD, and then we also had a script. Yeah.
Okay, a question about the script part. So presumably it's going to be calling the script with a parameter. It's going to say, hey, here's a script. Here's a bunch of information that I want. I want to know, I want you to do this task, create a record for a job to this person on this day or something like that. The script needs to then, I guess, parse that information in JSON, and then it has to provide a result out. So is that the mechanism here?
That's correct. And actually, it may be good that maybe we'll build this connection and we can go into some of the scripting portions, but that's accurate. The script is receiving JSON from the tool. It's, in this case, going to validate that the JSON is as the script would expect, and then take action, creating a record, associating a record, and then respond back with a success parameter.
And so the way to kind of think about it is if it's like a script that you're running on PSauce or something that doesn't have a client session, for all that, not to be confused, context that you need to pass over to it. That's what Matt's talking about there. It's really the same approach. And that's very exciting. Like as you've been playing with this, Louis, are you tempted to create scripts that are specific to MCP connections, or are you finding, you're reusing some of the scripts or maybe having to modify them a little bit? What's been your experience?
I find that I'm either creating new scripts to work within this paradigm to provide the control that I want, or pretty heavily modifying existing scripts.
Okay.
I would note that not all scripts really are appropriate for this, right? There's a lot of scripts that just drive our FileMaker UI, right?
Is that the same with tables? Are all tables appropriate for this? Are all...
Oh, I don't think so. I think you should provide the tables that are specific to the task you're looking for the client to do. That's important from both a FileMaker security perspective and data perspective, but also for the client itself, right? Rather than providing them all the tables that they may not use, why not just hone it into just the ones you want them to execute?
So like after we look at this part, I definitely want to take a look at what that configuration looks like, because it's kind of a new thing, and it's also very familiar to FileMaker, and I was excited as hell when I first went through it.
Cool. Let's switch over that. Let's go through a configuration. I'm going to do it from the UI level using the UI that we provide, but I want to call out that everything you see here is available also as an API, but then to other clients. And if we have time towards the end, I'll do a demo where we actually have a client building MCP connections. So let's do a really UI so we can talk about some stuff, and then we'll get into more advanced pieces. Okay, let me switch over.
And of course, you're going to go into FileMaker itself and go under Manage Databases to configure MCP, right?
We're actually going to use the UI. There is a new UI we made available.
Look at this. Wow.
It's available at aiworkspace.platform.claris.com. It's available to anyone that has a Claris Studio connection and a FileMaker license. So if you'd like to try it out, give it a try.
So this is in the world of, like, when you use Claris Connect, you go to a website. When you use Claris Studio, you go to a website. And then this is the same, and everything's interconnected.
Of course, totally makes sense.
Correct. Right,
and this is because, also, what was the tie-in with Studio? You mentioned if you have Studio, you then have access to this. Is that a dependency, or is that just a interesting trivia point?
You do need a studio account, particularly a manager account, in order
For
to
user
access
management.
this UI. This is the
Okay,
configuration UI, right?
got it.
As we said earlier, you don't need it for the consumption, right? Once you've configured a tool, you can just use it. But Studio Manager specifically can configure MCP.
Cool.
So in this case, this is the what we're calling AI workspace, which has the MCP configurator in it. Um, this will expand over time, but today we're going to use it to configure an MCP connection. The first thing I'd like to show everyone is where to go for the documentation. The documentation
Mm.
team at Claris has done a really good job going through and creating helps for this, knowing that it's a newer technology. And so if you go to the bottom left corner where your account is, there's a documentation tab, and that'll take you to our help space. That has what I'm going to show you today, both how to work through the configuration, working through context, but then also best practices and tool guides. So highly recommend as you get into it, if you get stuck, bottom left corner, there's a documentation tab. It's got a lot of really helpful information. We've been very intentional with this to try to make this as simple and seamless as possible, but we know that it's a newer technology, so we know that we need to provide some additional background. So in this case, I don't have any context. We're going to create the same context that I used previously to drive the PeakWorks demo that I showed you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click the getting started right in the middle there, and I'm going to give my context a name, and I'm just going to call this PeakWorks.
That are listening, we're in this AI workspace, platform.claris.com. Louis hit the only button on screen, which is get started, and now you're entering in context name. What do you mean context name, Louis? Isn't this just, I'm just connecting to a database? Why don't I just call it the database name, or talk about why you're naming context?
So the name of the context is just for the end user. It's for the user that's configuring it so they can identify it. In this particular case, it's not per database because you can actually have multiple connections within one context.
Nice.
And so it's important to note that, again, there's another level here. So we've created a configuration. It's called PeakWorks. That doesn't matter to the client. Again, that's only for the user to identify it.
So not one connection to one database. Just want to hammer that one more time. You could potentially have multiple database connections in one configuration if that's what your use case requires, right?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah,
Sweet.
you could have many connections to one context. Yep.
And now you're adding connection. Talk to us about what a connection means in MCP.
Cool. So connection is the configuration information that you would need in order to connect to OData. FileMaker server. So important piece of information we're going to need here is the server domain that you have for your FileMaker server, and the username and password for that account that we talked about earlier.
Case sensitive?
To set up. The username and password absolutely is case sensitive. The domain is not. I would call out though that the domain does need to be a fully qualified domain name. So you do need to have an SSL. It needs to be reachable on the internet. And so I'm going to give this a name. I'll just call this my connection. Again, this is just for me. And then my server for the demo is Scarif-FM. And I already have an account populated. And it's going to use the domain, username, and password combination to go through and see what databases we could connect to with MCP. You may not have all your databases connected. Oh, pre-fight failed.
It might be a Scarif, not Scarf.
Yeah, thank you. I spell that wrong every time.
You hungry?
Scarif, yeah. It's actually autocorrect, but I let it run. Yeah, I let it run. So in this case, for my database, for my server, I have two databases. I have the PeakWorks that we want to connect to, and
these are
tasks.
the ones that have OData extended authentication enabled, essentially, right?
And probably that account name too, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
Specifically, the account name, OData enabled, FM REST enabled, which is data API, and then access. So we've done what we call internally a pre-flight. That's not necessarily a term we would use externally, but just to describe it here, to see which databases are applicable for the connection you're making. So from within here, I'm going to choose PeakWorks and choose next here, and it's going to go through and it's going to look for all the tables that it can access. And again, this is where the FileMaker security would come into play. If you didn't want a table accessed,
just throw all the tables at it, right?
Yeah. Select all as your friend.
Just YOLO.
Yeah. We're going to choose just the ones that we want to make sure that things work well.
I'm being facetious. Of course, the idea here is to specifically pick just the tables that are necessary. This is a signal and noise thing, as is a lot of context-related things with community.
Now, theoretically, because I'm hearing this, we're jumping ahead, but I'm hearing people talk about how giving script access is the best way to do it, and maybe the only way to do it. If that's the case, you wouldn't need to do this at all? The script itself.
You could certainly skip. you could certainly skip this step. The next
Okay.
step, we're going to select the script, and you could,
Got
and
it.
I hear a lot as well. That's feedback that we've heard is that scripting allows control, and that control
Right.
and that familiarity is good, and I would support that. I do find myself that there are times that I just want to create a record or I want to update a record that I don't necessarily need the script.
Right.
We'll
Right.
talk about why I'm more confident in that when we get to some more of the configuration, because there's some things MCP does for us that makes us more confident than just if we were to use a REST API.
All right. So you choose 3 tables.
I chose my 3 tables. I'm going to choose next. And now it's going to say, okay, these are the scripts that I have. And we're not going to take Chris's tact. We're going to choose just the script that we want because we only want to be able to do one thing and we want to assign a job. That was the,
And
that
of
was the
course, if
script
you
that
have
we
a
saw.
1,000 scripts, there's an easy search button, a search field up there.
Nice.
Yes, right here. Right. But we're just going to do that one just to keep it nice and concise. So we're going to create the connection. It's going to go through, it's going to scan the FileMaker database, pull out the relevant metadata, the table schema, and the individual tools. Then it's going to create the tools for it.
And
We
so
create,
we're looking at here, by the way, a bunch of CRUD operations for those that are listening. Some of the tool names, for example, are create underscore jobs underscore record, which, as you can imagine, does that. And some of them are related to the script that you gave access to here. Is that a fair way to look at this? Oh,
Yep.
look at that.
That's accurate. Yeah. So we've done some things in the UI to make it easier to work through these tools. We've done that because we do want you to work through and refine these tools. The skills and the insight you have in your databases will absolutely help the client be able to call the databases correctly. And so some of the logic that you have, we want to express in the tools themselves. Particularly, Matt, when you mentioned being able to go through and executing a script and the fact that scripts are abstract, right? They can do quite a lot, and the input parameters that they take are essentially an empty string or a string with values, right? And we know from previous experience that there's a lot of custom functions out there and a lot of process to pull out script parameters and then validate them, right?
Yeah, but also if
And
you're just
so
going to call a script to do something simple like make a record, modify a record, delete a record, you have to write all that code. Whereas if you just use it direct, it'll do that directly.
And if you are
Right.
doing the thing that you guys are indicating a lot of people are talking about where you skip over tables completely, you don't have, like, if you want to run a script that creates a new job, you don't have to give access to the table jobs first, because the access rights that are the user combined with the privilege or the script are managing will allow that to occur. Is that a fair way to differentiate that? Or do you need to select, in my example, the jobs table first?
So the account that you execute the script must have access to the jobs table.
And
You
that's
don't
why,
necessarily need the jobs tool.
so
Right.
this concept where people are skipping the table thing and going right to the script, you can do that because the script and your privilege sets will actually manage your access to that table.
And of course, the script could have a
Right.
checkbox check to run with full access too. So,
YOLO.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So in this particular case, as I mentioned, we want to do some refinement. We want to make this particular tool based on the script easier and better for the LLM to select or the client to select. And so I'm going to edit the details here. I have a title, which is human readable. That's for humans, not necessarily the client. I have the tool name, which is used by the client, a description, and then an enabled and disabled.
Is it?
Those are the top level pieces.
The tool name's going to be called by JSON, and it's snake case. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I really the most profound use the reason that MCP is meaningful is really because of this description field here. There's additional resources that you can expose as well too, but what was missing before and what you don't have when you're just making an API connection is literally a description for the LLM as to what is meaningful about this. Now, is a couple sentences going to move the needle that much? Probably not. But, the more information you can put into this description, the better, because those are essentially the hooks or the listeners that you're providing to the MCP client to be able to invoke this tool appropriately.
So that's actually
Right.
used by the tool. It's not just like a thing. It's a huge part of the AI. It's like a system prompt, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be injected into the prompt that's going to the LLM's going to have to pull which tools it has access to. And if you don't give it a description, you're leaving it to just name to kind of figure those things out. So this will really help get the right tool for the right job. Louis, I know over cocktails, you and I have talked about the idea of loading an entire prompt as a resource along with your MCP that is pages and pages of this intelligence. But in the absence of that approach, don't sleep on it. By the way, is description, it's not required?
It is not required because from the MCP protocol, it's not
I'm
required.
just going to put in a wish list to FileMaker to make that required as a discipline. While it's not required for MCP, everyone should put something in there and be very descriptive about it and take it very seriously.
Got it.
As a matter of fact, throw your script into your favorite chat bot and ask it to write the description for you as it.
Well, that's why I see the little button in the corner that says use chatbot to write description. Oh wait, that's not. I don't see the button.
Not
The
yet.
future's long. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So sorry about my description diatribe, but
That's good.
No, it's a great thing to call out. I like to think the description as crucial for whether the client is going to select that tool appropriately. Right. There's other things we can do, as you say, system prompt we can talk about, which actually is in the system at the moment. Which we can talk about it when we get there.
Sweet.
Okay.
But in this case, the description is going to help the client execute this particular tool and execute it in a particular way. So I've added a description just to give you kind of an idea of what this looks like. This tool is used to search for jobs. Some fields in this table are converted to make them compatible with MCP tools. Call the get jobs definition tool to retrieve the available schema to use when searching. We can get into that in a little bit. Again, we'll add it to the to-do list at the end.
Just
So a tool can call a tool.
listeners, yeah, exactly. Great call out. You were mentioning another tool that you are not configuring right now in the description of this tool. Cool.
That's damn cool. And you can probably also list like description information about fields and that this can also access, presumably.
Oh, thank you for teeing that up. And so we'll move from tool details to input schema in this case, which will allow us to define what the script can accept. In this case, as we talked about earlier, scripts are rather abstract. And so by default, they're a script parameter of string, which is optional. And we want to get deeper than that. We want to make sure that the LLM knows or the client knows how to call this and around what properties it should add. And so
a little JSON editor.
JSON editor. Yeah. There's also a UI. If you want to stick with the UI, you certainly can. For our purposes today, I'm going to intentionally go to the JSON so we can talk a little bit about what we accept.
Yeah.
This is JSON schema, which is a widely adopted standard that's out there.
This looks
It's
like
used
the
to
custom
describe.
connector UI, actually. Was it borrowed to some degree, or is it that same framework that you guys are using?
It's certainly similar. I wouldn't say it's the exact same because we've made enhancements, but it's certainly similar. Yeah.
Cool.
In this particular case, for my script, which we can talk about in a moment, I want to make sure that the script is called with a job ID and a technician ID, right? Those are the things that I got an extra.
Louis, isn't it best practice to
drivers.
just YOLO that, like literally just put every single field that you have, all the columns, just throw it all in there and let it figure it out?
Why do you keep doing this?
It's it's best to be concise. You can certainly do that, but it's
Try to
best to be
tease me.
concise.
Yeah.
In
No
this
YOLO.
particular case, no YOLO yet. The properties that we're going to have, again, is job ID. It's a type of string, and I'm giving it a description. And this description is going to describe for the client what that job ID should be. So in this case, the ID of the job to assign to the technician, and then a technician ID, which is another type of string, which is the ID of the technician to assign to the job. This is what my script
description
takes.
just as important here as it is to describe the server connection, right? And
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
gives you an opportunity. I find as a best practice at this level, you can use terminology like use this field when, because in fact you're talking to the LLM and it helps map it and find the right fields with that type of language. So
Yeah, and here you're just directly editing JSON.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
JSON schema. Yep.
Yep.
And you're right. In this case, the description here is critical because it's going to tell the LLM, hey, the primary key that you got when you listed all the jobs, that's the thing you use here in the script. And so, yeah, absolutely. One of the most critical aspects is describing the fields that you have.
Yeah, and I'm going to slow down a little bit here again because we're never going to let you finish. Schema. So basically a huge part of the way this thing works is you're telling it the schema of your FileMaker database in ways that you need to describe it. Because it can't just guess what your database does, what it is, where data is. So you're actually giving it information about the schema, which gives you two huge features. One of them is you can use MCP to actually just query and get information about the structure of the database. What fields do I have here? What do I have there? And then the second one is to get data knowing the structure of that database. Okay, continue.
Yep. So last but not least, these are required fields. So I add a required array. And with that, I've refined this tool to be executable well within the client. And you would, of course, go through and do that for your tables. For the sake of timing, I'm not going to do them all. The only other piece I'd say is, one of the things we've done is add a table and we have a delete jobs record. That's probably not something you want to make make available to your client. And so the only other thing I'll do here is go through and just disable all the tools that show delete. I can turn them on later on if I want to make changes. But I've now disabled them, which means that the client can't call those tools even though they're defined. And so
for listeners, you're looking at a vast list of table operations, but you did not create those. These were created on your behalf. Okay. And interestingly, while there's CRUD in there too, we should note that list is also one of the operations that's here. So if you do ultimately want to show or display, list is, you want to keep those enabled. But yeah, get rid of those deletes.
And then there's a search. Okay. So if you wanted to find other ones that say delete, you just say, show me all the deletes, and you can just check them. Okay, cool.
Nice.
With that, the next step here would be to move it into what we call the testing phase. I think one of the most important things that we're introducing with MCP is the idea of phases and being able to test and feel confident about what you're going to deploy. And so when we've done this editing, we were in the editing phase. Now I want to actually test it out in Claude, and I want to see, or even put it through an evaluation if you have that process in place, to make sure that the client is actually doing exactly what I want. It's not doing anything untold. And so in this particular case, the next step is going to be to move it to the testing phase. And when I do that, I can no longer edit the tools. All I can do is deploy this and then test. And again, you could hook this up into an evaluation framework and really get accurate results and feel confident, or you can just try it in Cloud. It's really up to your process and what you're looking to do.
Yeah, and then duplicated version. So it's kind of like a custom connector that way.
Sure. Even more than that, we provide what we call branching. So like, let's say you've tested this and deployed it, but now you want to make a change. That's something that we all need to do. Either there's enhancements, somebody found a bug, we need to make a change.
Right.
It's important with this that the users aren't disturbed by that, and we can roll out with confidence. And so what we've done here is, if you move something to the live phase, the phase where you're sharing it, and then you try to make a change, it branches it into another phase where you can make changes, and the original is still available. Users don't even know anything's happened, and when you're ready, you can put them back together. And so this allows you to deploy seamlessly.
You're managing these like a repo, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. I do describe it as like a Git flow kind of scenario.
Nice. Yeah. How did you, just for those listening, how did you switch from edit into testing mode?
In the top right corner, there's an update context button. That button has the ability to move between phases. It also does a little bit of a description. So move to editing, because we can go from testing back to editing, right? Because we know that we want to be able to make changes there. We haven't deployed it to anyone. And then when we're ready, when we're confident it's working in the right way, we can deploy the changes. And when we deploy the changes, you can think of it as like set in stone. And if we want to make any additional changes, that's where you branch and then merge back in.
So how is the user uninterrupted from a branch, just, for those unfamiliar with Git flow, for example?
We essentially set up a secondary context that remembers the original context that you can merge back to. So users never know anything has happened. They don't know that the branch exists. It's only, in this case, the Studio Team Manager that can configure that branch and merge it when they're ready.
Because otherwise you'd have to actually go in and change your connection names, or like have V1, V2, V3 or something like that. And then users are all involved. That's very cool. Nicely done.
Are you gonna?
It's a new paradigm.
Are you gonna publish this? Make it live?
Say it one more time.
Are you gonna push the button, Max? Deploy?
I wasn't going to do it yet because I wanted to show a few more things, but I can. If you want to live on the edge, we can do that.
No. Let's show it.
Sure. I want to show the configuration Because that is the piece, Matt, that you mentioned earlier that we're going to need to plug into our client. In this case, the client's going to be Claude. That's the first client we're going to use. And each client is different. Again, it's very much bring your own client, bring your own model. So we're going to give you a variety of connections. There is the server entries, which some clients take, and then the server file, which other clients take. In this particular case, I'm going to use the server file, which is this one here, with my configuration. Now, I mentioned earlier that things are secured with a token. This is the token that allows access to the context. It can be revoked at any time. It can be deleted at any time. But this is what you would provide to end users to allow them to connect to Claude.
Yeah,
Any questions before I move on?
Standard API credential type stuff. Yeah, this is magic, right? So this is the key thing, the key bit of code that allows you to connect something else to FileMaker. This is the one step you'd have to do that. Yeah.
Right.
And if you are configuring Claude for the first time, we jumped into a pre-configured Claude in the demo earlier, but this is what it's going to be asking you for in order to be able to create this configuration.
And you can do this while it's in the edit or, but not the live stage. Yeah.
You can create the configuration across all stages. So whether it be editing, live, or testing, you can configure that URL. Once you make it live, once you move to the deployment phase, the tools themselves can't change.
Okay.
And that's, again, to keep it competent when we deploy. So now let's talk about that. Let's talk about going through and adding the configuration, because this is a manual step, at least a manual step for now. I'm going to go to Claude here. I'm going to go to File. Oh, sorry. I'm getting that wrong myself. I'm going to go to my settings.
Admin.
Yeah, sorry, I went the wrong one. Settings, and then developer, not the admin, sorry. And in this case, I have a config, but I'll go to the developer, edit the config, and it's going to bring up this file. Now, for the sake of the demo, I pre-populated it just because it's easier that way. But what I copied from the UI, I can paste directly in here. And you'll note, as we saw earlier, there's the URL, there's that context that we created, and then there's the static token. I then know that it's working within Claude. I should step back. For some reason, you have to restart Claude. So after adding your configuration, quick Claude, open it back up, and it'll see the configuration. You'll see the MCP server here. It'll show running. And then when you go into a chat, if you click the addition symbol, under connectors, you'll see the connection.
Nice.
And so from here, I can ask the questions. I can say, what are you able to do? Yeah, it's a little generic, but let's see what it comes back.
Well, see, and this is actually looking not just at the FileMaker connection. It's looking at everything Claude can do and also the connection or connections, because you can have this connected to a whole bunch of different FileMaker databases and synthesize data across all of them, yeah?
Right, exactly. And that's actually perfectly teed up because it showed both what Claude can do, communication and writing, analysis and research, coding and technical work, but then also these specific tools that we gave it, right? The citations database, the jobs database, the assignment script. Right?
And I'm also going to back up another thing, right? That the screen that you just were on before this to configure it inside Claude, you could also add the hundreds or whatever, thousands of other tools, other applications, other vendors that have MCP.
Correct.
Yeah, so it really is just adding FileMaker to this mix in the most seamless, best way that I've ever seen, to be able to synthesize its data and its features into the greater world.
So in the same chat too, by the way, like you could say,
exactly, that's what I meant.
Here's my FileMaker data, and here's a bunch of other stuff outside of FileMaker we can do in this chat. Super cool.
Right. Yeah, something like, I don't know, wild example, find all the records, find the invoices for, July 2024 and cross-reference them with data from like a SQL lookup, and then go look for the public information from these customers' websites and then give me a report or something like that.
Ooh,
something a while they're using 3 totally different types of tools. Am I crazy?
Excellent point.
No, not at all. I mean, I think in the same way that like Connect, for example, allowed you to connect to things and perform actions, but when you stitched them together into a single flow, that's really where magic can happen, and even potentially pass data amongst them.
I would say this, and I would say this is an order of magnitude easier and a couple of orders of magnitude more powerful.
And 5,000 orders of magnitudes more.
There's no such thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, come on.
I
Two,
accept it. I accept all of it.
four,
Yeah.
four.
5,000 orders of magnitude.
5,000 million magnitude orders. Baud.
I want to find out
5,000
how big
baud.
of a number that is. It's
A lot of zeros in there. It's a really fast modem. But that's the thing. So what Matt's indicating here is like it's not all about just connecting to FileMaker, but like making FileMaker part of a like chat citizen where you can connect to multiple different things, not just to draw data. And I think that's probably the bigger misconception is people just see MCP as an alternative to API for just drawing data back. It's all about the scripts you can run and the actions you can perform. It's really about tools to really kind of wrap your head around it. So amazing stuff there.
Yeah, and I think
are we
actually
looking at here?
it's sort of a newer modern definition of tool, right? Like if you think about a tool of something in a drawer, but it's a major superset of that kind of an idea. Anyway, continue, sir.
What you're saying is absolutely right. I love hearing it. I like to describe the MCP for FileMaker that we've created as giving FileMaker a voice for AI, right?
Oh.
That FileMaker can then talk to AI and talk to other clients of
yeah.
AI. So that's the way I like to think about it. Yeah. I brought up the inspector here. This is the new UI we haven't talked about before, but I brought it up because it allows us to see the actual structure that we create. I believe, Cris, you had called out earlier that like we've automatically created these tools for you. And it's important for me to highlight that we are creating the tools for you, but we're being very intentional with how we're creating them and what functionality we're going to make available. And so I pulled up one tool, the Create Jobs Record tool, in this list here of tools that we have to show you the structure on the right-hand side. And there's a couple things I want to call out here. Not only do we have the Create Job structure, which takes some information, as we would see, but then also in my FileMaker database, I have spaces in my field names, and I have some other characters that aren't necessarily best for a client to consume. So one of the things that we do is not only do we describe the table or the record structure to the MCP tool, but also convert them. And so places where phone number might be spaces, we make it an underscore.
Converted in this paradigm, not necessarily back on the original table.
Correct. In this paradigm, yeah. Cool. The original tables stay untouched. There's no
Is it using the invisible ID in the background such that if you change the name of a field in FileMaker, it won't break?
In this particular case, we do. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that you need there, though, at least 22.0.4, right, which is the version of Observer that I believe just came out. And so that allows you to use the ID rather than the field name.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Which is a cool enhancement. We were talking about enhancements earlier. That was one of my favorites. Yeah. The other, just to show this off, I'm going to like the search tools or the listing tools, is a description of OData, right? We populate that for you. We also do some conversion. Eagle-eyed folks that look at the ad OData knows that like filter is really $ filter. Right, but some clients have an issue with the $, and so we're abstracting that for you, and the client chooses filter with whatever format that it wants, and we will translate that into a format that OData will accept. And so there's a translation layer that we're adding with MCP Server to make sure that your environment in FileMaker stays exactly as you know it, but it's able to speak well to the AI.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nice. Okay, sweet.
Cool. You guys want to see one more demo? Or maybe two more demos?
Yes.
I want to see 3, but I mean, if 2 is what you have.
Well, let's see how much time we have. All right. I want to shift around and, in this case, talk about containers, one of the multimedia fields that we have in FileMaker, and some of the things you can do there. And then these are newer features we've added to MCP. And so what I'll do here is a really quick demo. I've got a business card for Isaac Asimov, one of my favorite writers, and I'm going to drop that into Claude and ask Claude to analyze it for me, specifically to try to save this contact in my contact database. And so I didn't tell it to save it to my database. I just said, save this contact. And I'll bring up FileMaker so that we can see this happen. I'll click the send symbol to send this to Claude. Claude's going to look at the card. It's going to pull out the relevant information and then create the record inside of FileMaker for me. So it's kind of cool. It also works with multimedia. But then also, to your points earlier, we can combine this with other techniques, other tools that Claude has. And so Isaac Asimov is a writer, or was a writer. And so we might ask, can we have a biography for this contact, right? And so we'll ask that question to Claude. And then
Two years
once
goes out.
Claude's able to pull it, it's going to take that information and then put it into the FileMaker database. And so there.
See, I kind of think realistically, this particular flow is something that you would start in FileMaker, not in Claude Desktop.
Well, except
Right,
that, yeah, and for those that are listening, we have Claude on one side, FileMaker on the other. It's worth noting that the data was added to the field way before Claude actually displayed it, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And to Matt's point, yeah, you could start in FileMaker. The interesting thing is we're offloading OCR to Claude, so that's why we, in this case, started there, because it can actually parse the data from the image where we don't have to have burden FileMaker with it.
For a lot of these things, there's tons of ways to do it. This exact thing that you're showing is something that I'm going to be showing in one of the upcoming free classes that I do. There's one of the few things that can be done that way that don't require MCP. And that would be using, dropping the business card into a field in FileMaker, and then using the images endpoint in OpenAI or something like that to read it, and then give you back a JSON object with all of the data, and then using a regular old FileMaker script that says, here's the name, here's the phone number, here's the email. So you have to actually name the fields and write the scripts to say, write the data from zip code that's in zip code. But that whole thing is 20 lines of code.
Awesome.
And doesn't require any of the other stuff. Anyway, so I love that there's different ideas to do the same thing.
That class is free. Just go to navarrotraining.com.
Navarro.training. Actually, I think I might have put my classes up on like LinkedIn and do them every week or two or something like that. Anyway, but this goes a million times beyond that.
Wait a minute. Is that a million orders of magnitude or just a million times?
Don't you have a statistics degree?
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. I do want to round trip this, though. I want to get us back to the container here.
And where we're at for the listeners is we've started in Claude. It actually did a masterful job of filling in all the fields. But then Louis actually said, hey, you know what? Go get me a biography. That's not a field that we've got. There's a details field in FileMaker. But it created one and inserted it into the details field appropriately, which was cool.
Awesome. Thank you for the recap. So I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to, in this case, then upload a container, right? But I don't have the container with me. I'm going to ask it to actually take one from the internet. And so I've got a contact image that I found. I'm going to go through and ask Claude to then update the FileMaker application with that, or FileMaker container field with that photo. And so you'll see here it's executing the upload context photo file. It gave me the photo in the database. And now just to show the round trip, I can then also retrieve it and then act on it within Claude. So I'll ask it to show me the context photo. It's going to pull it from FileMaker and show it in line within Claude.
Crazy. And you could have it create an image for you and populate if that was relevant to your use case.
Sure. Yep. And of course, there's other clients that can do that very well. Also.
Yeah, sure.
So,
sure.
Yep. Awesome. So I wanted to make sure I showed that. The very last demo that I'll show is a little meta. I save it for the end because I think it's quite cool. And that is that everything that I showed you via the UI in the website that we saw earlier, let me sign in there, is also available to clients as MCP tools. So the creation of the context, creation of the connection, updating of the context, transitioning it, and then also updating tools can all be done with AI itself, with the same server. We call those tools developer tools. They're the same things that are available in the UI, but we call them developer tools. And so I do want to show just one more demo. I'm going to show something a little lower level. Again, we're going to use Fast Agent here to actually automatically create the context that we did in the UI,
what
but
Fast
programmatically.
Agent is for those that have not embarked on that agent development journey.
Sure. Fast Agent is a MCP tool that's been developed that allows you to test and execute MCP tools. A lot of times, again, very low level, very development. It's Python based. It's open source. So it's one of the clients that we talk through. After this demo, we'll actually go through and look at what that configuration looks like because I want to step out and then talk about some additional prompting and some of the context.
Yeah, and this actually terminal commands, not a UI, not a GUI.
Yeah, not a UI, terminal commands. So we're very low level at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to show that the capability is there. So in this case, I've got a file, agent.py. We'll see that in a minute. And I'm going to use this particular agent to actually create context for me. I'm going to do the exact same thing we did via the UI, but I'm going to do it via the CLI or a CLI. So in this particular case, I'll hit run to run the agent. It's going to start up my agent and then ask me what I'd like to do. In this particular case, I'm going to say, what tools do you have available and what can you do with them? Just to show these developer tools off. It's going to look at the tool set that we made available, and it's going to summarize the tools that we have. And so key capabilities here, it's able to create connections, create context, update tool configurations, and then deploy them. So everything we do via the UI is available to this particular client. You still have the same phases. You can still, very cool. You can still manage them with confidence and evaluate them as you need. But this allows you to kind of automate that piece using an agent. So, an agent building an agent, if you will.
Yeah, that's so cool and fast.
Amazing, dude.
And the cool part here is that I get to interact with it with a human natural language, right? And I'm going to say, create me a connection to my Peakworks database, and it's able to pick out the server name. It's able to pick out the username and the password really, really well. And so it's going to say, okay, it needs the username and password. I'll say, use the account, SCP account, and the password, blah, blah, blah. Again, just a demo here. You can see that it's actually calling the tools in order to create the tables and the scripts. Yep. And so it says it can connect to the Peakworks database. Here are the tables, here are the scripts. Which tables and scripts would you like to include in your connection? And so we'll go through and we'll give it some of the tables and scripts that we wanted to use earlier, the assigned job script, which is what we saw, and both the jobs and services tables. Again, doing this with natural language rather than with UI.
Dude.
It's going to go through, it's going to create those tools, and then respond back and ask me the next step. And says your connection is ready to use for the job management and service operations. It's got the script tool that we created earlier, and then all these service and job tools as well.
Dude, I mean, very, very cool.
Yeah.
This is obviously your. Is it fair to say that this is part of your daily driver toolkit for working with agents and MCP?
This is, I use this kind of thing often, maybe not in this exact paradigm, but this kind of thing often to be able to create these tools, again, in kind of a meta way, right? The next thing that we can do here is update the job script, right? We mentioned earlier that the scripts need additional information. It requires a job ID and a technician ID. The difference here, I'm not using JSON. I'm just saying the script requires a job ID and the technician ID, and the LLM is constructing the JSON for me, or the client is constructing the JSON for me.
And do you mean FileMaker script here?
Yep, that's the same FileMaker script we were creating earlier. Now the client is creating it for me. And in this particular case, I noticed, and I actually mistyped something, right? So job ID, when I typed it out, was job ID capital. And so I will tell the agent here, I mistyped the parameters for the assigned job script. Please update the required input to be Pascal cased. Also, both parameters should have capital letters of ID. And it's going to go through and restructure that tool and then update it. So cool. With that in mind, do we want to dig in a little bit deeper and look at the fast agent?
I mean, yes, we can, but I think also like some realistic use cases. We've talked about the one pretty good one, but I'm really wondering about some other things that are going to connect to people's FileMaker lives a little bit more.
Matt,
rather than looking under the hood. I don't know.
I'll note that one of the things that we'll try to get in the show notes is I just dropped an article with that in mind. It's something I'm sharing on LinkedIn, but it's really about okay, high level, what is MCP, but what can you actually do with it? And so I tried to contribute to that discourse with that. That'll be in the show notes in case people want to dig in a little bit deeper. But Louis, what's some of the stuff that people are reporting back so far that they're using it for? Because you've been traveling the world talking to people about.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the beta testers probably have stuff in production. Yeah.
I won't speak to any specific users having any in production. They are out there, but I don't want to blow anyone up.
Of course.
That's their choice. That I've heard, some of the biggest use cases that I've seen is the contact one is one that I was talking to a customer about, and they were like, they spend a lot of time on the phone and then grabbing contacts from people, and they want a real quick way to upload it. So that demo in itself came from a customer use case. Some of the other, and I'll abstract these as much as possible, use cases that are out there that I think are really interested is to be able to go through and identify patterns and queries within a particular database, right? We have FileMaker files that can be huge in a lot of cases, thousands and hundreds of thousands of records. And so being able to do things like construct really efficient queries, right? That's something that you can do quite easily
Yeah,
with
how
an
does it
AI.
do? Like if
Yeah.
you said something like, if you had a million invoices and you said, find all the invoices that sold these particular products in February of this 10-year range, but only, something pretty specific like that, only in the month of February for this 10-year range, only with these three products as line items on the invoice. That'd be a hell of a slow query. And how does it deal with stuff like that?
So the way that I would look at that is not necessarily with just one client. And
Hmm.
that's where I would actually separate it out and do it into multiple and
Mm.
try to
Hmm.
specialize each client in a way that it can execute well. That's what I was referring to earlier when we talk about like efficiently generating queries, right?
Hmm.
One of the
Hmm.
things that we can do here is have a client that is specifically good at creating and executing a query, and then another client that's able to take that information and summarize it.
Mm.
And so those kind of use cases actually are a little meta, right? They're about the FileMaker structure itself, but we got feedback from customers that like it works really well to describe the queries and create queries that could be used elsewhere.
Hmm. Hmm. So,
The other thing,
like, figure it out. It's like, oh, okay, well, what you're asking for is line item, so I'm going to do my query in the line item table first because that's much faster, for those
Right.
two products. And say, okay, then, figure out a way, the fastest possible way to go from those to the related invoices, and then summarize that data, kind of a thing. Very different than what you might do as a FileMaker developer. Just go to find mode and click into a field that's two relationships away, and then go have lunch,
Right.
all at once.
it's probably worth noting to bringing back the comment you made earlier, Matt, that if you're exploring use cases, to not just keep that focus narrow to
Hmm.
what FileMaker can do. It's like your FileMaker data and tools and other things that you want to do. So,
Hmm.
at the very least, go, ask your favorite chat what some of the MCP use cases are, where some of these repositories are. That I think will really open up the lens for you quite a bit on for those that are interested in experimenting and just looking for greenfield opportunities to use this new technology.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
guess as I'm talking about my own example there, you could put in the tool use, don't use this tool if the result is likely to result in a found set of greater than 100,000.
oh,
If that's
interesting.
the case, then do this other thing. Anyway.
It's
Yeah.
excellent that you pointed that out. I just wanted to give a salient example of what I was
Hmm.
talking earlier so you
Hmm.
could see this. This would be the instructions that we would give or that I would give a client when executing a OData query. And so I actually built this with another client, right? With another agent that I had that helps me structure it. It looked at the tools that I had, it looked at the FileMaker database I had using
Hmm.
the connection creation we had earlier, and then it created instructions that are specific to that FileMaker database that allows it to query really, really well. And so this is actually using, in this case, a client to build another client that can really efficiently access
Hmm.
FileMaker data. You could see things like equality is status equal to active, how to use the contains method, and then specific things like how to grab average values, maximum values. And then again, as we saw earlier in the tool, just a more advanced example, call the get archive definition first, right? Call
Hmm.
that tool, and then once you have that, go through and execute the query.
This is probably the
Um,
Hmm.
biggest
Hmm.
reason to
Hmm.
go look at YouTube. Louis is actually showing his agent framework that he's developed on screen, like real actual agents. And I'm very impressed with your syntax here and what you've been doing. Very, very cool stuff. Everybody should check it out and screen scrape your agent
cool.
instruction.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
This is something that we consider adding as a prompt in the MCP server, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
something similar to this, right? So then not only do you have these tools, but then you also have access to prompts as well. Yeah.
Which is what we were
System
loosely
prompts, like,
referring to as system prompts
yeah,
before.
like you
Right.
are
Is what
an
you're saying.
expert at creating efficient OData queries to access
Or
information, blah, blah, blah.
here's all the details of all of the schema and your exploded definitions of
Yeah.
tools and just anything else you think would be useful as well. Or here at this org we call this blah 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 or something. Louis, this is amazing. And before I've taken some notes, and before I rapid fire yes or no on are these the best practices that I believe I heard you say, think about this a little bit, because in our next episode, Matt and I are going to be doing an episode on it's our end of year episode. I've got a bunch of really cool stuff about what people are using AI for. Think about what your favorite use case of AI, personal or professional, is. While you're ruminating on that, I'll rapid fire on some best practices. But this is the notes that I've got while you're thinking about that. Expose only what's necessary. All the kidding that we're talking about with YOLO, it's really just the only the tables and fields and annotation in your descriptions that are necessary. Use dedicated accounts and privilege sets. It seemed that was you were prescriptive there. Name and describe tools, specifically in description, like in business terms. I would actually maybe rephrase that as descriptions for the LLM. Like you're talking to the LLM, like use this for this, and this is what this is for. Define input schemas for clarity. Your script expects JSON with certain keys, then define those in the tool's input schema with correct data types. Is that fair as well? Yep. Get used to using test in the edit and testing modes. Those are going to be your best friend. And then finally, you didn't mention it, but I think it goes without saying, monitor and log AI actions. This is where your favorite evaluation frameworks or observability frameworks come into play. So you can actually kind of see how all these things are either getting you the desired effect or not. Louis, amazing. Always, I can't believe this is the first time we've had you on the podcast. I'm sorry about that. It's Matt's fault, honestly. I keep
It
saying
is.
We got to get Louis on here.
That's quite all right. It's a lot of fun.
So what is as a preview to when Matt and I talk about this in our next episode, what's your favorite AI use case, either personal or business, in 2025?
My favorite AI use case, I won't relate it to business, but I have quite a few different, what I will call agents that monitor the tide, the wind, and the surf height, and it give me the most predictable time to go out and surf. Spoiler alert, that's every day, right? Every day is the best day to go surf.
Is it right now?
Yeah, but I have a few agents that work together to do that, which again just make me very happy. Some of the other things I do, just throw it out there again, less business, more myself.
Sure.
Is track. I'm a big fan of 3D printing, and so I have a agent that actually tracks my filament, tries to guess when I need new filament, and will actually order it when I need it. So that is kind of cool.
Based on like the STL, like the dimensions, and it'll tell you whether you have enough or how much you're going to need.
Yeah, based on the weight of the print that I want to do, the prints that I have queued up, and based on how much filament I have left in my machine. Based on that queue, it'll try to guess when I would need to order. And then actually have it so that I don't ever run out. And it works pretty well. Again, less business, but more fun. Right?
The fun ones are all personal. Dude, awesome. And that's a little preview. And I think, Matt, we're going to do a New Year's pod drop, right?
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about there's been a whole litany of reports that have come out. I've been collecting and analyzing all of them. All the big ones out there, like the Perplexities of the world, the Googles, OpenAI, they're talking about what people are using their tools to do. And actually, a lot of them fall into the personal category rather than business. I will share an aggregation of that will prompt Matt and I to talk a little bit about what our favorite use cases of AI are as well. And then we'll get into the big end of year. What are our predictions for 2026? This is where Matt will be correct in everything he is predicting, as he has been flawlessly for the past 20 years.
Like I was last year, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And so that one will be a when you guys are on your holiday break and you're walking the dog and looking for some inspiration, we'll be dropping that around New Year's. This will be the sober version.
You guys aren't already on your holiday break?
Well, as you can see by my Santa beard, I am getting ready to deliver toys to kids all over the universe.
It's got a ways to go.
Yeah,
getting the slate ready.
It's the right color, and you're much younger than me. Maybe one of the reasons I don't want to grow my beard out is because I'll find out it looks like that.
You can't hide. But of course, Matt and I are the same age, so he is just.
No, you're like 5 years younger than me, I thought.
Aw.
aren't you?
We could just end on that. I mean, we can just end on that.
Just like a just an
Well, Louis is like 20 years younger than me, so
yeah.
as a matter of fact, I'll end with this anecdote. This was hilarious. Louis and I were at a React conference, and this is when I was into my butter coffee back then, and so there was only like one bar of Wi-Fi in the entire conference center. So I was, occupying it, trying to solve some problem or whatever. And I said, Louis, can you go ask those people if they can make my butter coffee thing? And Louis like, yeah, of course, And then
Keto.
he comes, yeah, it was keto coffee. And he comes back and he says, he's just laughing with this little grin on his face. And he's like, they go, oh yeah, is this for your dad? Cause I'd been in there every day with him. And I didn't even have the beard going. So whatever, I'll give you that one, Louis. But
I just went with it. I said yes. Took the coffee and delivered. Right?
You took the coffee and you go, grandfather.
Damn. Well, we did it, Louis. Thanks so much for making so much time for us. This is amazing.
I know,
for
it's
those
great.
of you that have listened, definitely go rewatch. There's so much good stuff on screen on YouTube, and tell your friends. This is going to be a big topic in 2026.
I got one parting shot, and it's a, I don't know, take it or leave it, mixed blessing and everything. This is not easy, right? So there's a lot of steps here. And every single one of them takes advantage of the stuff that we already know and understand and love about our clients' databases, what they do, what they need, how they work, how stuff comes together, what kind of a tool should work, what the client has been dreaming about doing with their scripts and their data. It leverages what we've already been building our whole career doing, A, and B, the skills to implement it don't look like much. There's a really, really shallow learning curve. This is not a steep learning curve.
Using a chat, I'll kidding aside,
yeah.
help you with some of the stuff, like well-formed JSON, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so those two things I find exciting.
I'll say, only because we're in the long tail of the pod here, but my parting shot will be, I think this is the most important AI release that Claris has made in the FileMaker realm.
Oh, by the million orders of magnitude, which by the way, I looked that up, and that's It's vastly, vastly larger than the number of particles in the known universe. So
that's exactly what I was going for. So yeah,
so we're doing well.
Yeah. Well done, Louis. Take this back to Claire. Say thank you to everybody for us. Really great job. I know how hard you've been working on this. We've drowned each other's sorrows in some drinks over this topic for a long time. So way to go. Exhale over the holiday. Get out to the beach. Surf with your agent-driven surf times, and we'll see you in the new year. And Matt, I'll look forward to seeing you just before it as we do our New Year's Eve special.
Yep.
All right, gents. Cheerio.
Bye, Alexi.
Thanks very much. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.